So the Las Vegas Raiders haven't been too active in the free agency period. They've obviously signed some of their own guys. They've signed some of the free agents that were pending. They extended Maxx Crosby. And they did bring in a couple of players, right? They brought in a safety, a linebacker, a guard. But generally speaking, they haven't been super, super high spenders. And I'm okay with what the Raiders have done up to this point. They did make a really nice move yesterday in signing running back Raheem Mostert. This is a guy that I think has a ton of upside, a ton of potential. Yeah, he is 33 years old. And for a running back especially, that is super, super, super up there in age. But this guy is like one of one, right? He was mostly a special teams player earlier on in his career. He didn't have a lot of carries, but he broke out a little late with the 49ers, had some success, went to the Dolphins, had 21 total touchdowns in 2023, which was just last year. Didn't play as much the most recent season, which was 2024. But the guy still is a solid running back. And for the Raiders, signing this guy 1 year, $2.1 million is a very, very, very good contract for the Raiders. And once again, John Spytek is doing what he's done up to this point, right? He isn't spending big money. He's bringing in guys that are value-based guys. Now, of course, Mostert's not going to be the only running back for the Raiders this season. We already have Dylan Labe. We have a couple other guys under contract. We have some young guys mostly, right? Most of the guys we have under contract are going to be on rookie contracts. Mostert will be the veteran in the room, right? And this also doesn't stop the Raiders from actually drafting a running back. In fact, to me, I think the Raiders' plan going into this season is going to be to allow Mostert to kind of be that number 2 running back. And then, of course, you're going to bring in a rookie running back. And the Raiders are going to run a lot of zone-based concepts. I expect Chip Kelly to run heavy doses of outside zone. And I think Mostert fits that perfectly, right? It's what he's had success in with that Kyle Shanahan scheme, the Mike McDaniel scheme, right? It's that heavy outside zone. Remember, there's a big difference when it comes to running outside zone versus inside zone, right? For the offensive lineman, it's completely different. For the running back, in terms of the angle they're taking, it's completely different. The reads are different as well, right? Running outside zone. And I know it's a type of zone running scheme, so, people are going to say, hey, does it really matter? It does make a big difference. Mostert, if you're running power with this guy, he's not going to have as much success. Right? Power oftentimes is an inside run concept. You're going to take big hits running it inside. This guy's not a guy that is going to take big hits, right? But what I do like about this contract is it's a $2.1 million contract. Low risk, high upside. Again, I don't expect this guy to run for 1,500 yards for the Raiders, but if you give him 75 touches, right, 5, 6, 7 touches a game, that's perfect for this guy, right? Because 5, 6 touches might lead you to 50 yards on any given play, right? Because that's the type of explosiveness that Mostert has. Now, obviously, again, he's going to start to decline at some point. Some people would even say he started that decline this past season. But I think for the Raiders, you're adding a veteran. You're adding a guy that could also potentially help some of the younger guys. We need Dylan Labe to develop. And if anybody out there has had success later on in their careers, right? Maybe not as much success early on running the football. Mosert's the guy, right? So he's the guy that could potentially help, develop some of these guys. And of course, as I stated, I think for the Raiders, it's going to be the smart thing to do to go out there and draft the running back, if not 2 running backs, right? This class, there's 15 good running backs in this class. Of course, I'd say the top 3 or 4 are like true feature backs, right? They're guys like, Nick Chubb. They're guys like Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, right? Guys that are going to give 20, 25 touches to in specific games. But then there's another 10 running backs that could be good, productive, backup type running backs, right? Running back, RB2s, kind of similar to what Mostert was for Devon Achane over his first 2 seasons, right? To me, I think if you think about the Raiders and kind of the approach they're taking at the running back position, it seems like the Raiders are going to end up drafting a running back. Now, some people will say, should the Raiders go in and draft Ashton Jeanty? Right? Because that's the running back that I think most people want at this point. If I'm the Raiders, I am, I'm obviously going to consider Ashton Jeanty with pick 6, but you also have to be realistic. The Raiders have the 37th pick in the 2nd round. They have the 68th pick in the 3rd round. You can easily land in the 2nd round, you probably get like RB3. In the 3rd round, you could probably get like the 6th or 7th running back. Now, if you take a running back in the 3rd round, he might not be a feature back, right? A guy like Nick Chubb or Christian McCaffrey. But if you take one in the 2nd round, you can definitely land a really, really, really solid running back in this class. RJ Harvey will probably be there, although he might be available in the 3rd round. Caleb Johnson could be available as well in the 3rd round. But those are guys that are probably going in the 2nd round. And I think again, for the Raiders, you don't have to reach and say we're going to take Ashton Genty at pick 6. And I shouldn't say reach. That's not the right thing, right? Genty is obviously a phenomenal running back. But he is a running back at the end of the day, right? Running backs will always be limited in their career, right? Pick 6, you take a right tackle, he's playing for 15 years if he's a good football player. Best case scenario out of running back, you get like 5 to 8 years out of a running back, right? So you got to hesitate with picking a guy with pick 6 specifically, because of that. Now, of course, if, the top 2 wide receivers are gone, the best offensive tackle's gone, the best cornerback's gone, the best defensive end is gone, and you feel like running back is the best position at that point and everybody else is, not that good, keep in mind this draft's a little unique, right? There's a lot of good high-end talent and there's a bunch of average isn't the right word. There's a bunch of guys that at pick 7, you wouldn't want them, right? You'd want them at pick 18, pick 20, pick 25. And there's a bunch of guys that you can take out pick 25 and it'd be a really good pick. It's probably 50 guys, truth be told, that you can take out pick 25 and you're going to say that's a good pick. Which makes our second and third round pick that much more valuable, right? This year, the Raiders can get 3 starting caliber players with those first 3 picks. You can get a starting running back, a starting guard, a starting tackle, starting defensive end, starting wide receiver, right? So we'll see what the Raiders end up doing. Really, really like the Raheem Mostert signing. Low risk, high upside, veteran, is going to help the running back room. And of course, he's going to fit the Chip Kelly scheme and system. There's a couple of things I want to talk to, but before we go forward, I want to just take a second to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this channel, Underdog Fantasy, the best platform for fantasy sports. If you guys have never utilized Underdog, highly suggest you guys check it out. Obviously, I was making picks over the course of the season for the football season. That is over now. But with Underdog, you can do so many more picks for so many different sports, right? NBA is something I've been getting a lot more into. It's one of the sports that I hadn't watched for years, getting so much more into it over the past couple of years. I'd say probably the last 2 years specifically, and this year being a lot more fully invested in watching basketball. But you can do more than just basketball. You got college basketball, NHL, PGA, tennis. But Underdog is one of those places where you have a lot of fun kind of making these picks, right? You get to use your knowledge, you get to really test. If you're able to make some of these picks, I did a entry earlier today. We're going to take 3 picks, $15, payouts $109. I think this one's going to definitely hit. Luka Doncic, 32.5 points. I'm going to pick the higher on that. Luka had 45 yesterday. The Lakers are on a 2-game losing streak. And I also think the fact that, the Lakers are going to try to win this game, right? This is a huge game coming up against Denver. It is a back-to-back, so it will be a little bit harder. But I still think Luka's going to come out there. I think he's going to drop a ton of points, right? 45 yesterday. I think he'll be able to hit at least 32.5. Also keep in mind, the Lakers are playing the Nuggets, who they played 2 weeks ago, and they dominated the Nuggets, right? But more than that, it was Jokic that kind of got shut down. JJ Redick came up with this crazy blitz plan of going right at Jokic, and they shut him down. He had 12 or 13 points, multiple turnovers. The fact that the Lakers have a bunch of players out, right? Jackson Hayes, I don't think he's playing, right? He's been out for a couple games now. Rui Hachimura is still out. LeBron's likely out. I think Jokic is going to end up having a monster day, right? 30 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. So we're taking the higher on 50.5 combined points, rebounds, and assists. I think he's going to hit that. I think he's going to come in, angry about that game last time, and he's going to want to win. Plus, obviously, the Nuggets, Lakers are kind of fighting for that second seed right now. So I'm going to take the higher on that. And then, of course, we're going to make a baseball pick, which we don't generally do on this channel. Nick Pivetta, I'm going to say he's going to have at least 5 strikeouts. He's averaged 6. I'd be shocked if he does not hit this. There it is, $15 entry, $109 for the payout. If you have never used Underdog, man, go check out the link down in the comments below. Hit my link, support the channel, support the sponsor of this channel specifically. Shout out to Underdog. Let's get right back into this, man. There's been some interesting things that have kind of happened. Not directly with the Raiders, but directly, more so of indirect, right? Because these are guys that were with the Raiders. Gardner Minshew signed a 1-year contract with the Kansas City Chiefs. And this was kind of surprising when I saw this. I did not think the Chiefs would be the team that would ultimately be bringing in Gardner Minshew, right? I thought Gardner Minshew wouldn't even go sign for a couple of months, right? Given the fact that he was released by the Raiders with a failed physical, basically, right? He wasn't healthy, so the Raiders released him in that way, which would have benefited him if he was unable to land a contract. But the Chiefs quickly jumped in and they signed Gardner Minshew. And I actually saw some Chiefs fans talking about this guy. And they're like, hey, he's the best backup quarterback we've ever had. And they're actually excited for it, right? They're excited to be able to bring in Gardner Minshew, which actually makes sense if you guys think about it, right? First and foremost, Patrick Mahomes is a great quarterback. But Andy Reid is a better offensive play designer, in my opinion, than Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. And I think for a guy like Gardner Minshew, who's 2 years younger than Patrick Mahomes, right? I think he's like 27, 28 years old. This is a great learning opportunity, right? And this might be able to revive his career as it kind of goes forward. We saw Sam Darnold go pair up with Kyle Shanahan for 2 years, had a lot of success. He then went to the Vikings, paired up with Kevin O'Connell. Keep in mind, Kevin O'Connell is tied to Kyle Shanahan, at least similar through Sean McVay. And Sam Darnold found a lot of success, right, through that. And I think we've seen guys like Baker Mayfield have success, Smith have success. I think Gardner Minshew could potentially finally also find that same success. I think he may have also realized how important it is to have a good offensive coordinator, especially, after being paired up with Luke Getsy. He probably realized what a difference it could make. And I hope Gardner Minshew has success. Hopefully not with the Chiefs, but hopefully he has success, down the line for his personal career. He will be paired up with Andy Reid. I'd actually like to see Gardner Minshew play for the Chiefs. I think this would answer a lot of questions about how good Patrick Mahomes really is. Don't get me wrong, he's a great quarterback, but Andy Reid's also a great offensive coordinator. And I think Gardner Minshew with Andy Reid would prove that Andy Reid's a lot better than what he gets credit for. Will be interesting to see kind of what happens. The Raiders also ended up losing Clavon Chason. This one is something that I kind of want to talk about because some people have been saying, should the Las Vegas Raiders, who, came into this offseason, we knew we had Malcolm Koonce that we needed to potentially bring back. If we weren't able to bring him back, should we replace him with Clavon Chason? And then even if those two guys, one guy kind of comes back, one doesn't, should the Raiders still look to bring in another defensive end? Like, pick 6, there's probably going to be a bunch of talented players. There's probably 3 other defensive ends other than Abdul Carter that'll probably be there that will be worth that pick. Should the Raiders still consider bringing one of these guys in? Of course, we have Tyree Wilson as well. Tyree Wilson hasn't really shown much. He's a power-based guy. Power doesn't work as well in the NFL as it does in college. He's a power-based guy. How should the Raiders kind of handle this as we go forward? Now, of course, Clavon Chason, $5 million with the Patriots. Some people are upset that the Raiders didn't pay him $6 million and kind of bring him back. But we do have to also realize, the Raiders are also in position where they could technically draft the defensive end. If you think about Malcolm Koonce's 1-year contract, that 1-year contract's phenomenal for the for him because he can kind of come in and improve himself. $12 million is phenomenal for the Raiders. It's not a lot of money, given it's a premium position. If you think about this, if you're the Las Vegas Raiders, Malcolm Koonce is likely not going to be here in a year, from this point. And you're kind of betting on Tyree Wilson developing. And if you don't think Tyree Wilson can develop, keep in mind, we don't know what John Spytek thinks of Tyree Wilson. He might trade his ass for all we know, right? He might not like him at all. There's a chance the Raiders actually do draft the defensive end. Now, some people are saying, why not just pay Clavon Chason? Why not just give him that opportunity and let him potentially be the future? Right? Why not give him a 3-year contract worth $7 million, right? $21 million, 3 years. Why not give that to this guy and just kind of let him be that guy, right? Especially since Malcolm Koonce, we're going to be priced out. It's just what it is. The thing with Clavon Chason is I think he's going to bet on himself this year, right? You go to the Patriots. The Patriots probably have, one other defensive end that would start over Chason, which means he's probably going to be one of the key contributors for that defensive line. I think when you think about it from Chason's perspective, he's almost betting on himself, right? He's almost betting that he'll be able to go into the Patriots. He'll play 500-600 snaps for the Patriots. If he has a big year, right? If he has 7 sacks this season, if he has, 18 quarterback hits, if he has, 30 pressures on top of that, if he has a good season, he's going to get $15 million in the offseason. I think he's betting on himself going to the Patriots, being one of the guys for the Patriots, find that success, and then in a year from there, he ends up getting a $3-4-5 million contract. 3-4-5 year, 12, 13, 15, 17 million, right? Just depending on the kind of season he has. I think he's betting on himself, and this is smart for him, right? To leave the Raiders, Where with the Raiders, if you think about it, you know, you have Maxx in front of him, you have Malcolm Koonce in front of him. He knows those two guys are 100% in front of him. Even Tyree Wilson is probably going to be in front of Chase on. To me, he looks at it like if I go, if I sign with the Raiders, I'm not going to have that same success because I'm going to be the fourth or fifth guy in line to kind of get those snaps. With the Patriots, 1 year, prove it, I get that big contract. I think this makes sense for him. Now, to take it a step back and talk about the Raiders and kind of what we have to do to figure out our defensive end position for the long term. You know, we have Maxx and we have Christian already under contract. Adam Butler signed a 3-year contract. The contract that Adam Butler got, that would be the best case scenario for whoever's going to be the other side of Maxx, right? Of course, this year it's going to be Malcolm Koonce, but we got to figure it out long term. Now, the best case scenario is Tyree Wilson develops. Worst case scenario is Tyree Wilson's not good, right? And the Raiders end up just drafting a defensive end. But if you do draft the guy, I would not draft the guy this year. I think it'd be bad value for the Raiders. You have Malcolm under contract. You have Tyree Wilson technically for 3 more seasons if you really wanted him, right? He's in his 3rd year this year. He has 2 years on the rookie contract, got the 5th year option if you really wanted to keep him around. I think the best thing the Raiders could do is let Tyree Wilson actually just start this season. Let Tyree Wilson start, ease Malcolm Koonce in for the first 5 weeks of the season. Week 6, if he feels good, let him, let him kind of take over at that point, right? Depending on what Tyree Wilson has done as well. But I think the Raiders have to realistically develop Tyree, right? This is the final year for Tyree. Year 3, if you're not good, you're not going to be good, right? So the Raiders have to really make it a push to, potentially develop Tyree, make him that guy, that vocal point opposite of Maxx. And hopefully the Raiders are able to develop him. Shout out to Clavon Chason for reviving his career, right? If you guys remember, the guy literally went from, being with the Jags draft his replacement. He ultimately ended up being a backup for his final 2 years with the Jags. Got let go, went to the Panthers. He thought that, hey, I signed a contract in March with the Panthers. I'm going to be on this team long term. He couldn't even make it out of training camp. They cut him. They didn't even want him on the active roster. That's a low point. And then he ultimately ended up coming over to the Raiders. Raiders needed some help, and he balled out. So shout out to him for at least getting a $5 million contract with the Patriots. Hopefully it works out for him. Let me know what you guys think, man. The Raiders have not been as active as I hope that they would be, truth be told. I love the fact that we're not going all in on guys, right? Like, I would be more upset if we spent $19 million on Aaron Banks than I am with where we're at right now, right? I would rather hold out and not be all in, right? And some people have said maybe the Raiders are interested in Cooper Kupp, Keenan Allen. Maybe it's a wide receiver that they're kind of interested in. If the holdout is these guys want 15 or 20 million and you're only willing to offer 10 to 12, and that's the holdout, I'm okay with that, right? The contracts you sign today are going to impact you in 2, 3, 4 years down the line. So I think John Spytek is doing a perfectly fine job. Remember, Super Bowls are not won in free agency. They're won in the draft room, right? Let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time with another video.